Hey, everybody. Good morning. It's Kevin Petersen, licensed marriage and family therapist, owner of Petersen Family Counseling, and author of Chronic Hope, Parenting the Addicted Child. This is the Chronic Hope podcast. We are healing the whole family from addiction. This is episode 2. And we are joined by Chris Blauvelt from the Augustine Recovery Center. Chris is the Director of Admissions and Operations. How you doing, Chris?
Good. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing all right, buddy. I really appreciate you joining us here on the podcast on episode 2. And what we're trying to accomplish in this podcast is helping families understand addiction, how to choose a treatment center, and then how to heal the family as well. And I know that's a topic that's important to you, and it's a huge important to me as well.
Sure.
But that's kind of what I'm hoping that we can accomplish and chat it up today and talk about and just sort of run with. And what I would love it if you could do is spend a little bit of time telling us about the Augustine Recovery Center, its history, its origin, its visions, its goals, et cetera, and then we'll talk about how it also serves the families.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me be of service to our cause, your cause, the Augustine's cause, which is obviously healing individuals addicted to alcohol and drugs and struggling with trauma. And obviously helping the family unit, because we know that the disease of addiction is a family disease. So I'll just give you a little snapshot. The Augustine Recovery Center celebrates its 5th year of operation this August. We are family owned and operated. We're gender specific, which means right now we're just serving men. We have plans to have a women's center here shortly. But right now we're just serving men over the age of 18, struggling with addiction and trauma. Jason and Lauren, this was their dream to start this center. They moved here from Texas a few years before we opened, fell in love with St. Augustine. We're here on the beach. We've got a really vibrant recovery community. And so we've been rocking and rolling now for 5 years. What we specialize in is creating a totally unique environment for men who have not been able to stay sober in your classic 15 to 30, 45-day treatment environment. Our place is set up more like a retreat. It feels like you're at a family member's house and less like you're at a hospital. It opens up the air for honesty and kind of cleaning out the skeletons in your closet. And we're doing that by marrying the 12 steps with trauma-informed therapy. So the guys are getting a case manager. They're doing all 12 steps while they're in treatment. They're getting a primary therapist, and they're working through the mental, emotional, and cognitive side of things. And on top of that, we're going kayaking, we're going surfing, we're doing outdoor team building activities that are promoting a life of sobriety to show these guys that it can be fun, it can be engaging, to dispel that myth that a sober life is a boring one. And to really just get their, get their spirit moving again, As far as what we hope to achieve, that's long-term sobriety with themselves and their family, helping their family recovery, bringing their family to the recovery process as well. And that's kind of where you come in, isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about how incorporating the family and the significance of the family. But I want to make sure that the people that are watching and listening and hearing what we have to say, that they understand. So you are, when you say gender specific, so what you're talking about is that you serve men.
Yes. Right now, we're serving men over the age of 18.
And let's just say, what's your sweet spot? What's your target client?
Well, we didn't intend to have a target client, but life has brought us the chronic relapsers and the individuals who have a tough time staying sober. Those guys who have been to a lot of treatment centers with failed attempts at staying sober. So the tough cases. We're really our specialty is the tough cases.
Okay. And then now I know you guys have it broken into certain phases. So the first one's 90 days. Is that correct?
Yep. So we've got a 90-day. Sorry, we've got the groundskeeping crew here.
It's okay.
We've got a 90-day length of stay. After that, our graduates are typically referred to a cornerstone program, which is on campus. It's kind of like sober living light, where you're, or should I say, honor roll sober living, where you are still on campus. You're allowed to leave, apply for a pass, increase communication with the family members, but you're still on campus, just a green's walk away from your therapist and your case manager. So if something happens, an idea pops into your head that was unexpected, you've got a craving, you just walk over to the main building and you process that with a staff member of your choosing. And following that, the graduates, they go to our sober living, which is a really neat experience. It's in historic downtown St. Augustine. And often they're staying there for 6 to 12 months because St. Augustine is such a cool town to get sober in. There's a great thriving recovery community, a lot of water sports here. We're on the beach. And so we've got some meetings on the beach down at the pier. So once the guys graduate our program, 3 or 4 months of stay on campus, they're going to sober living for 6 to 12 months, and they're jump starting their early life in recovery, and pumping up that recovery life raft so that they can start bringing other family members from the wreckage into their recovery life raft, as I like to say.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And just so we're clear, the phase where they're in sober living for 6 to 12 months, and that's down on the beach. They're not just kayaking, surfing, and hanging out and going to the beach. At that point, you guys are encouraging them to go to work and go back to school and get back into life, right?
Yeah. So, and just so I'm clear with our viewers, the sober house is downtown. Downtown as a whole is close to the beach, but I don't want anyone going to sober living and saying, "Hey, what the heck? They said this was." Yeah, you're right. When you go to sober living, you're probably going to be working with a case manager. We have a staff, and they report exclusively to sober living, and there are different options of aftercare that you can participate in while in sober living. You can do IOP, which is intensive outpatient. You're commuting back to campus, main campus, and doing day treatment. You could do aftercare, which is like outpatient. You're still meeting with a therapist. You're still meeting with a case manager. Or depending on the need and the family members want, you might just go to sober living. And even basic sober living, there's still a huge laundry list of rules and accountability that you have to follow. You do have to have a sponsor. You have to be going to meetings. You have to have a job or fulfill a volunteer opportunity. There's curfews. You have to make sure you're checking in with house managers when you're coming and going. It's certainly not a free-for-all, and I think it is more structured than most sober livings. I've been to sober living myself personally, and it's definitely more structured than that sober living. Is to, and I'm sure you know this, it can be a bit easier to stay sober in a controlled environment, and so we're not letting go of their hand completely, but we're starting to let go of their hand so that they can learn what early sobriety is like and how to handle those the ups and downs of the days in early sobriety on their own. But we've got staff available so that when they're kind of at a loss, there's somebody to turn to.
So you're not putting them in a place where they're operating without a net. You're just giving them some more room to work with.
Sure. Yep. And the cargo might be a little bit deeper. It may fall a little bit more, but the cargo net's still there. The safety net's still there.
Fantastic. So now I know you guys have a family program, because the Chronic Hope podcast is really about addressing the family, the entire addiction, and how it impacts the family, not just the individual. Sure. And so I know you guys do a family program in the first 90 days. Tell us about that.
We have a family program that we've been doing since the beginning. It's every 5 weeks, which is about once a calendar month. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We invite the families to come. We encourage them strongly to come participate in family programming each month. And there's a revolving curriculum, and the curriculums are, neurobiology of addiction, grief and loss, and the family system. And so typically as a family member, you're going through all three of those curriculums. And if you come back maybe for a fourth or fifth one, you might get a refresher in one of those curriculums. And it involves educational talks from the family members, from the staff members, like Journey Through the 12 Steps is one of our lectures where we talk about the vicious cycle, the triangle and the circle and what that means, the 3 pillars of AA, the 12 steps, how they tie into recovery as a whole and recovery as a family. And we're also doing group processes, family therapy, individual and group therapy with the family members. We're doing some icebreakers, tours. We do a big family potluck at the end of the weekend where, man, the guys are able to order, what their hearts desire for junk food. We eat very healthy. So you're talking about a lot of desserts, wings, more wings, pizza with everything you can imagine on it. And, it kind of wraps up the weekend with a light and spirited, potluck.
Cool. And so that's the first 90-day program. And then if somebody goes into the sober living environment, you guys also offer a family case management program that I'm a part of. Can you describe that a little bit?
Yep. That's our aftercare program. When you graduate sober living, we will strongly suggest that you as a family and as the individual in the middle of this process participate in aftercare. You are a big part of that, Kevin. High praises from our family members for Kevin and the work you've been doing with the family members. And that is aftercare, not just for the individual, but for the family too. Of course, they're having coaching calls with you. Our case manager over there right now, Tyler, he's a very spirited young man, on fire for recovery and on fire in this field. And he's working with the guys, helping them with meeting all those requirements that I talked about earlier, the meetings, the job, the sponsorship, the continued participation in a 12-step environment. He's linking the families up with you so that they're getting those coaching calls going. And in the event of a pitfall, those services, they're also continuing to see therapy. They can come back to campus and do neurofeedback. They can have access to our doctors for med management if that's the case. So really, it's a continued access to the suite of staff members that they've had in treatment with you coming on board as an added bonus. And if there's a pitfall or a mistake, those services don't stop. So the idea is to keep that supportive structure in place no matter what happens, whether it's a positive or a negative.
And I love that. I love that about you guys, that, you don't turn your back on somebody if they make a mistake and you're there, and that you allow me to continue to work with the families. If a client relapses or disappears, we don't just turn off the tap. It's like, all right, good luck. We're here for the family. And again, I would tell you, thank you for the compliment. And I would tell you that I love working with the families when they get to that part of the program, because they're so prepared and they're so ready. And one of the things that I love working with them about is that they say, I explain to them, no, I'm here to help you. We're not even going to talk about the guy that's in treatment. I'm here for you. My job's to help you. And then, literally there's like this light bulb that goes off, like, oh, wait a minute. You're my guy. And I'm like, right, exactly. I'm your guy. And I'm going to help you. By the way, we got a hello from a guy named Duke Rumley out in Colorado.
Oh, Duke.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's an old buddy of mine. And
we gotta connect, Duke. I'm not gonna forget about you. We're gonna connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Next year, Duke runs the Sober AF Entertainment, and he comes out in Jacksonville to go to the Georgia-Florida game. And
Sober tailgates.
Yeah, Sober tailgates. It's amazing. So now another thing I think is really critical, and this is the big sort of the third. There's the before, during, and after. I always break up family case management into before treatment is how we get them to you guys. During treatment is while the addict is at TARC, I'm working with the family, or your people are working with the family and helping the family to start change the family system and deal with their stuff, and help them understand things like, you're not responsible for their addiction, but you are responsible for how you react to it, and then we get the addict to sober living, and then we start doing family case management with the family. Then we start talking about reintegration and, what's the next step? And talk about that.
Oh man, that's a loaded, that's a full bag of. So
Yeah.
you're talking about a little. We touched on this a little bit yesterday with the unification process and building the family blueprint ahead of time, so that we're not trying to bust that bad boy out when the family member gets home. One of the things you hear a buzzword all the time in this field is discharge planning, right? Well, I think it goes above and beyond just who's your primary care provider. Are you going to meetings after this? Are you going to see a therapist after this? Because a lot of the times it gets overlooked when family members bring that individual back home, right? The wounds are still fresh. How late are you going to stay out? Is there a curfew? Oh, you're starting college in 3 months. What am I paying for? What are you paying for? You have to finish high school. Oh my gosh, you expelled from high school. Why didn't you tell me this? There's a bunch of the amends process. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on. And that's why I think it's so important to have really high level family involvement while the individual's in treatment, because you hear about some of these places where it's a vacuum and there's no family involvement, and they get out of treatment and they show up at your doorstep and there's a lot of what to deal with. And I think it's so important to develop that family blueprint so that when the unification, the reunification process takes place, this is all mapped out, and also, what do we do if A, B, and C, or what do we not do if A, B, and C? And that's where someone like you comes into place, because there's just so many different scenarios that could take place, good and bad. And I think that the intense emotions and the kind of varying situations that can happen when the family is reunited at home, there's so many different variable outcomes that it could be impossible to plan for all of them, which is why I think you need to at least plan for some of them, so that and you should have a family member should have someone like you in their court, so that when this stuff does unfold, a professional is there to help them with the things that they haven't planned for.
Right. You want to have the what if scenarios and sort of have the boundaries set up, and that what I love about working with you guys is that you guys have it organized ahead of time, so that it's not, okay, well, it's time to go home and we're just going to drop you off at home and good luck, and here's your packet of information and your 5-page contract of behavior. It's all very much worked on ahead of time and engaged with ahead of time. And we call that the family blueprint for sustained recovery. And that's just critical. I mean, it's the significant piece is helping the individual coming out of treatment reintegrate with the family, helping the family to reintegrate with the addict, and getting everybody on the same team and on the same page, and understanding that things are different now and they need to be different for everybody.
Yep. And don't even get me started with school. I mean, if school's in there, it brings a whole new, level, a whole new set of questions to the table.
Yeah. So we have a viewer question, and I think we've kind of hit it, but let's just make sure. How important is having a plan for discharge with the family? And I kind of feel like we
very important.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing I think it's important that you mentioned earlier too, is that isn't something you do like 3 days before they leave.
No.
That program, that discharge planning starts pretty much when they enter sober living. It's like, okay, let's start talking about what the next steps are and how we're going to get there.
Yeah. We start planning for what's going to happen after treatment at the very least 30 days before they leave. We have a 3-month-long program. So on their 60th day, we're already talking to the family and to the patient about what is after treatment going to look like. Are you going to go home? Do you have to go to school? Do you have a job? Do you have kids? Are you going to sober living? Because like I said, the options and the variables are endless. 30 days is even barely enough time to figure that out. We're talking about life here, you know. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I feel like the one thing we haven't talked about is the costs, and I think it's important for people to know what your guys' philosophy is and what the costs are financially.
Sure. We take insurance. We're a small provider, so we are out of network with all insurance policies, which means if you have an insurance policy that maybe is an HMO and you have a network on your benefits package and it says, here's your network, we don't fall in that network. We're out of network, which usually means the second or third tier of your group, plan or the marketplace policy. We're usually a more expensive insurance plan that provides out-of-network benefits. We do take TRICARE, which is for families and for veterans, TRICARE Select. We do not take Medicare or Medicaid, unfortunately. And some of the reasons we don't take these insurances are because we're a small provider and we don't lean on volume. So that is the insurance deal. If you don't have insurance, typically our cost per month, and we're a 3-month program, is about $20,000 per month. One of the advantages of being a small privately owned place is that within reason, there's a small amount of wiggle room that we can talk about to make it more affordable for you. That being said, this is a very complicated business to run, as you know very, very well, I'm sure. And we're talking about doctors and master's level, employees and nurses and residential homes in the mix. So it can be a very expensive business to run. And that is, a reasoning for cost. And if I just could go on a tangent, one of the things that most people are looking for when they call an admissions director like me is free treatment. And I think there's some miseducation around, what it takes to really kind of turn the person's life around.
Right.
It takes a great deal of intervention to do that, and a lot of resources go into it.
Absolutely. And I totally get that. And that makes perfect sense. And I think that, for our viewers and our listeners, understanding that $20,000 for a month before the insurance kicks in, or the out-of-network stuff kicks in our industry is actually on the middle to low end because it's generally about $1,000 a day for the kind of treatment that you guys offer. And then, so what's the second phase cost? So that's the first 90 days. What's the sober living costs?
Sober living is $1,000 a month, which is very, very reasonable. And the aftercare is $2,000. So if you want to go to sober living and have complete access to the full suite of staff members who have, kind of set the course with you along the way, that's an extra $2,000. As you stay in sober living longer and longer, we have the ability to reduce the cost in the second, third, the second set of 3 months, and then in the third set of 3 months. So you're looking at a price drop in month 3 and a price drop in month 6. And the nice thing about working with us is we have a 2-person admin team and a two-person ownership team. So it's a really small, intimate family who you're dealing with when you're talking about billing and money and insurance with us. I'm not going to kick you up to the 10th floor and give you to some deadbeat. You're dealing with me really exclusively and our business manager, Kelly, who's also a real joy to work with. And, we're bouncing things off of Jason and Lauren, the owners, to make sure that it's, keeping our doors open. But we're really flexible. And I think that we're one of the few places that can really make something that's typically a life-changing investment more affordable.
I agree with that, and I appreciate that. So I think we're about running out of time. And I think I really appreciate your time, Chris, and I appreciate the Augustine Recovery Center allowing you to hang out with us here on the podcast and talk about families and addictions and codependency. And feels like we've done a pretty good job of talking about what you guys offer, how the family engagement goes with that, and what the costs are. And I understand that there's a new addition to your household.
Oh man, Life has been extra interesting lately. We just celebrated the birth of our second child, Cece, my first child. Our daughter's 2. She turned 2 this past weekend. Charlie is the newest addition, and he actually turns 3 weeks today. He's a beautiful baby boy, and so I'm a proud father of 2. My wife and I are both people in long-term recovery, and it's just amazing to start this process, in recovery with a healthy footing, and to be, to have the ability to pass that on to our, that healthy system, pass that on to our children, as they grow up.
That's fantastic. So this isn't just some intellectual concept for you. This is actually who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sobriety and recovery is deeply ingrained into the fiber of my existence. Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks again for your time. And thanks everybody for tuning in to the Chronic Hope podcast.
Awesome.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
You're killing it, Kevin Petersen. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris Blauvelt. You're the man.
All right.